you guys, and welcome back to another episode of a Tailor-Made Life podcast, where every conversation is one step closer to designing the life that God has for you. I am your host, Taylor Renee, and as always, I'm so excited to have you back here with me. Yeah, you guys, let's get right into it. Of course, time is it's never really truly on my side, you know. So yeah, we're just gonna hop right into it. I think last week we were talking about being available, and through being available, right, there was something that I touched on very briefly about having a surrendered heart. And so today I kind of wanted to dive more into that topic specifically and how to navigate surrendered hearts at work, right? And I think there are so many Christian good podcasts that talk about surrenderance, right? And surrendering your life to God. But what happens when you have to surrender yourself, on a random Tuesday at 9 a.m. You have to surrender yourself to your boss and to your coworkers and to your residents and whoever, right? I think that topic rarely gets talked about, and so I just wanted to dive into it today. When I think about surrender, right, I think it's one of the most misunderstood words in Christianity because it gets such a bad rep. You hear surrenderance, you think weakness. You think getting taken advantage of or being submissive, right? And we associate it with giving up. But it doesn't look like you losing your power, right? This is where you actually get your power from, right? It's the place where you actually can pull from in your times of need. Instead of pulling from your ego or from your pride, you can pull from a surrendered heart, therefore yielding better fruit, right? Having a surrendered heart, not only just in church or to God, but also at work, because our relationship with God should impact how we behave at work, right? It should have an effect on how we receive feedback, how we take criticism, how we interact with people we don't like. Your surrendered heart should be a part of those decisions. It should be a part of what you're thinking, what you're doing when you're not at church. Honestly, your career will only grow as much as your heart is surrendered. Culture today feels like it's so anti-surrenderance, right? It's always bigging up this idea of don't let them see you be weak, don't wave the white flag, always defend yourself, always have something to say, always have a rebuttal, a clapback, a punchline, never admit that you were wrong. And that's all propaganda, right? As a believer, you have to understand what God says about surrenders, right? God said a surrendered heart is teachable, is moldable, is tender. A surrendered heart listens before they respond, right? Because now you are able to then hear and listen and respond and implement what is happening instead of the opposite, right? God can't shape a hard heart. He can't shape anything that doesn't want to be shaped, right? Your coach, your boss, your superior, they can't teach you anything if you're stuck in your ways, if you don't want to be taught, right? I think in reality of just working, right, there's always going to be something that you don't know. There's always going to be someone who's higher. There's going to be someone who has authority over you, right, in a certain aspect. And when your heart is surrendered, we become moldable for the right strategies, the right game plans, the right things to implement, the right conversations to have, the right perspectives to have. Ultimately, the right wisdom, you being able to receive something from someone who's been in your spot before, who again kind of knows what to do a little better than you do. You are okay with the idea of someone telling you what to do and submitting to it, then you're better off. You have two employees that work the same exact job, right? The thing that is going to separate them, meaning one is going to get the promotion and one is not, right, is who is the most coachable, who can take the feedback the best, right, implement it, apply it, use it, right, and works the hardest. Someone who doesn't have that surrendered heart, who's always operating off of pride and ego, is someone who immediately tries to explain everything. They defend themselves all the time. They always have an excuse for something that they did wrong or a reason why they aren't performing well. But the employee that doesn't have that perspective, the one who is just looking to receive the feedback and looking to learn something, doesn't have much to say, is accountable, right? Is ultimately coachable, responds in a way that is not looking to justify their mistakes. I think that's the one that grows. That's the one that is able to move on, that is able to progress, because they can take the feedback. They have surrendered themselves under the authority of somebody else. But I want to make it clear though, like, this episode is not just about obeying your boss or kissing up in a sense, right? I'm not telling you to just suck up to your boss. God shaping your heart is not just submitting yourself to authority. It's more than that, right? It's having a surrendered heart. Doesn't mean that you accept abuse or manipulation or deception or somebody lying on you or, all of that crazy foolishness, right? It does not mean that. What I'm saying is remain teachable, remain humble, remain being able to be led by someone. Even when your pride wants to take over, surrender, like submit yourself, My biggest lesson right now is the job and the role that I'm in requires so much to be learned, right? I have to learn so much. And learning curves, to be honest with you, are just not fun. They don't feel good. And when I started getting feedback, I always felt like I had to feel like I had to defend myself. I always felt like there was something that, I had to do or I had to say in response to every little thing that was given back to me. And that's what I did. I mean, every time, I'd explain, I'd justify my decisions. I'd try to I did this because I was thinking, like it was just like, it was pointless. And when I realized I was so busy, I would be so busy trying to prepare my defense, that I wasn't actually listening to what the person was saying. I wasn't actually taking in the feedback because I was so stuck on trying to defend why I did what I did, trying to, but now I hush, right? Like now I listen, I take in what they're saying. I'm slower to respond, right? Sometimes I don't need to respond. Sometimes it's simple, okay, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, that's it. That simple, right? You don't have to respond and try to justify every little thing unless it is required, right? Unless it's something that you genuinely misunderstood, and then you explain yourself to get redirection. But other than that, sometimes there's no point, right? Sometimes you don't need to do that. And it's not because I don't have anything to say, but my goal isn't to win a conversation anymore. My goal is to grow from it, right? So I think now it's a point of having a surrendered heart first, surrendering yourself to God first before getting to work, before the situation happens, being prepared, being ready for something like that to happen. It's like you surrender your heart today, so tomorrow when someone disrespects you, or when someone gets out of line, or when you have to refrain from doing something or talking or gossiping, it's easier to do, right? If you surrender your heart today and work to surrender yourself now, then that will then show up in the later situations when you really need it. Giving grace, choosing humility, like not gossiping, not retaliating, those decisions are harder to make in the moment when your ego and your pride are going and you're provoked, right? But if you've been working on surrendering, you've been working on, how you handle your relationship with God, then when it's time for those things to come, it's easier, right? It's easier to surrender who you are, what you've done. The work has already been done, Surrenderance sometimes is so misconstrued. We surrender, our hands, we lift our hands in the sanctuary and we praise and we worship, and all of those things are great, right? But I think having a real surrendered heart looks like listening when someone gives you feedback instead of interrupting. Maybe it looks like questions instead of defending yourself, questioning it or challenge yourself to learn something more. That's what a surrendered heart. A surrendered heart isn't a weak one. It's a heart that God can actually use and then be filled with power, right? The goal here, right, is for your heart to remain coachable. For you, your actions, your perspectives, your ways, your tendencies to remain coachable, to remain teachable, right? I'm not saying don't stand firm on who you are and your values and your morals. Of course, do that all day, every day. But when it comes to how you handle certain things, how you approach certain things, if somebody gives you feedback, someone that you can value and trust, be open to it, right? Try to take something from it, learn something from it. People who are coachable, people who are teachable become people who are trustworthy, right? Trustworthy people then are able to be used by God, right? He can trust you to then elevate you, right? And so that's the goal, right? That's what we all want, right? But in the midst of that, having a surrendered heart is what's gonna yield that fruit. It's gonna bear what that is. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I thank you again for watching, for listening, to subscribing and commenting. We are getting this thing started, so I appreciate it. And yeah, till next time, bye.